Good morning. I know it's early. Some of you hopefully have had some coffee or other caffeine implements. I gave a presentation yesterday, Creativity 101, what is creativity? And everyone is creative. So if you weren't here, I'll give you a quick rundown. I'm Deneen McDermott. I have spent a couple of decades in the toy and game industry. I have a bachelor's degree in industrial design. I have a master's in creativity, believe it or not, creative studies from the Buffalo State SUNY. This presentation was obviously delivered before the keynote speaker, or that would say Legonaut on Instagram as Brickworm. So today I want to talk a little bit about creativity, a little more detail into divergent thinking and convergent thinking. What are the rules and some tools you can use for those, and ways to improve and strengthen ideas. So if you missed yesterday's presentation, I hope they'll be available online eventually, but we did talk a little bit about what is creativity. Creativity is the creation of new and useful ideas, making ideas or products, either one. So yesterday there was a great question about how do I get out of a box? And so I'm going to touch on that just a little bit in here. There's tools that I use to get out of the box. And one of the things I was talking about is put yourself in another box. Make a list for yourself of 60 different professions. Think Sesame Street, people you see in your neighborhood each day. The mailman, the I guess postal worker now, I'm showing my age now. The postal worker, the airline captain, the baker, the butcher, put in the candlestick maker, why not? But make a list of 60 of those things. Keep that someplace where you can reference it later on when you're feeling stuck and when you want to get out of your box and into a different box. And then bring up a digital clock that has a second hand. Glance at it, look at the number on the seconds, go down the list. Oh, it's 43 seconds. Go down to number 43. What would an airline captain do? So you've got a problem you're trying to face. Maybe you're making a build, making a mock. What do I want to make? I know I want to contribute to space, but what would an airline captain do in space? So that's a way to get out of your own box and you're technically going into somebody else's box, but it gets you breaking out of those thoughts and gives you some variations on ways to be creative. Right, so divergent thinking, we talked about yesterday, is what happens when you don't have enough ideas. You need more ideas, you need better ideas, you need novel ideas, you need something new for your new and useful creativity. There's more than one right answer. We talked about this yesterday if you were here. But the best way there's more than one right answer. And there's actually more than one best answer. And your first answer is usually not necessarily your best answer. There are things that are tried and true that you're going to want to do. Which way do I want to go to work? I want to go to work the way I always go to work. I've tested out different methods. I want to use the best way. There's major construction going on. So now I need to be creative. Which way do I want to go to work? I have to think about it. Or you bring up an app that lets you do your thinking for you. But sometimes that different way lets you find different things, lets you experience different things, and brings more things into your life, which also helps you be creative. But the best way to find the best solution is to find lots of solutions and then later converge down towards it. So, divergent thinking, there's more than one right solution. The rules for divergent thinking is to defer your judgment. Don't worry about, is this the right one? Is this the one that everybody will accept? Is this the one that's the cheapest? Is this the one that will be done on time? Think about that later. It's hard. It's very hard to defer that thinking till later, but you have to practice it. You want to go for quantity. Come up with an idea, make a variation on it. Come up with a different idea, make a variation on that. List as many ideas as you possibly can. Embrace novelty, embrace the new ideas. How can I go to work? Let's go in a hot air balloon. That's new. What could that imagine? You know, that's not necessarily the way I'm gonna get there. Oh wait, I'm deferring judgment. Think about that later. And then build on those ideas. Hot air balloon. What else could I do for air travel? I could fly. I could take a helicopter. I could do something else that has motors and rotors and wheels, and I could take skateboard or a Segway or something different. I could ride my bike. Why don't I ride my bike to work? So build on ideas, follow those trains of thoughts, let the novel ideas come in. These divergent rules are very, very critical. These are part of the creative problem-solving process. These are the rules that most of the time when they say brainstorming, these are the rules they forget. Alex Osborne was the father of brainstorming. He's the one that started all of this in 1963. We hear that term a lot, but he had these rules in place. Defer judgment, go for quantity, embrace novelty, and build on other ideas. If you're in a brainstorm session and those 4 rules aren't being applied, you're not really in a brainstorm session, you're in a yes man session. You're going in there to say, yes, boss, we like your idea. We're gonna go with your idea, boss. You didn't really want us to come in with new, novel, creative, useful ideas anyway. So those 4 rules are the key to brainstorming, but they're also the key to other forms of divergent thinking, and some other tools that I will bring up here in a moment. So we talked about how many different sessions we have, how many different ideas we have. My question, what is 2 + 2? If you were here yesterday, you know that I go for lots of answers to 2 + 2, not just the rote elementary school teacher answer of 4, but for instance, fruit salad, fish, okay? And if you can justify it, that's great. And if you can't, it's still creative. So, fruit salad. Now I'm going to give you 4 different tools other than brainstorming that you can use to come up with divergent ideas, more ideas, thinking, how do I get more ideas so I have more options available to me so that I can then later, deferring judgment, later pick from among them and find the best idea. It's hard to pick the best idea if you only have one idea in front of you, right? You need more ideas than that. We talked about what would X do? People in your neighborhood, make a list of 60 different people. I didn't even have that one in this presentation. That came up because of a great question we had yesterday. But morphological matrix, which is sometimes more easily called word dance. It has some other names in here too. A lot of people use it for the old journalistic trope of who, what, where, when, why, and how. But produce a list. What you want is a list of basic characteristics that are important to you for this. So for instance, a few months ago, I was trying to decide, I wanted to make a build for Star Wars. So what might I do for Star Wars? Okay, well, I'll make a list. I'm gonna need a character. I'm gonna need a location. I'm gonna need a situation because we want to tell a story, right? I want to figure out what build style, and there's lots of different build styles evidenced right next door. But I also want something different and unique and quirky and novel. So what's that extra something special that I'm going to put into it? And I make a list for all of those different things. So here's a chance to brainstorm a little bit into this, even by yourself. Make a list, whole list of characters, whole list of locations. And then each of those categories, generate as many ideas as you can. Give yourself plenty of time. Don't just take the first, I mean, I've got a short list here. The list should be much longer, wouldn't fit on this slide. And then you select one element from each of those columns. You can do it randomly, you can do it selectively, you can focus in on things. You know, I'm very fond of, Vader. Let's put him in space. On vacation. In a vehicle. Okay, that's maybe not as creative as it could have been. But And then let's make it special. Let's add food. So we've got Darth Vader in space on vacation with food or gingerbread. So make a TIE fighter out of gingerbread. Sounds fun to me. Here's another example of something I've created. Mando, very, very strong favorite in my family right now. On Tatooine, he's stuck. And we'll use a mosaic technique and some greebling. And that gave me this mosaic. And it may be very hard to tell from this, but there are about 4,000 Mandalorian helmets that are the mosaic technique on this guy. And as soon as Dark Tan becomes released in these quarter rounds, I will make this into something other than studio. I've been waiting. I've been waiting. So expensive. All right, here's another technique to use. Forced connections. This is one I actually use driving to work, believe it or not. Finding two random different things and mashing them up together. This is, I mean, we've seen this out there. We've got a great award-winning build next door that is a mashup of Harry Potter and Star Wars? No, Star Wars and, yeah, Harry Potter and Star Wars. It's just, it's like, this is cool. Star Wars is invading Harry Potter and they're kind of invading back, and it's mashup, putting two things together. You can do that with a number of things. That's how we got Velcro, for heaven's sakes. Is, you know, going out on the walk, I need to make something that attaches to things. Oh, look, there's things attached to my cuffs out in the woods. How can I use that? So one way of making forced connections is to take a random image. You can bring up a random image. I actually have a stack of printed images that have very few words or numbers or recognizable celebrities in them. They're just interesting places and things and events and happenings. And I can grab that and make dozens of lists of attributes, emotions I'm feeling. What does this remind me of? And put those down and then connect them to the challenge and just repeat that over and over again. Another way to make forced connections, I was saying I do this on my drive into work. I'll pass road signs. I'll look at license plates, bumper stickers, they're great. License plates, I've created more than a number of words out of the letters from license plates until the past year when everybody's license plate begins with B for some reason. It's like, I don't need more B's. Now you're all gonna go watch the license plates and see how many start with the letter B. You're already looking. And that's a great tip. One of the best ways to be creative is to observe the world around you, take in the information, you know, use random mashup things like orange. I see orange all weekend here because of our wonderful hosts wearing orange. Orange cup, what can I do with orange cup? What would be something I could mash up with orange cup? I don't know, think about it. Third tool, mind mapping. This is a visualization tool that you can use to expand. It's great. This is divergent thinking at its prime. You start with a central topic, a holiday, for instance, and then everything that you think about when you think about holiday, you think about family, you think about location, you think about activities, what you want to do, where you want to go, when you might do it, and you branch those off. And then you expand from there. So family goes into a broad array of things, people, places, as well as, you know, experiences, perhaps. You think of activities. What can we do on vacation? We could go skiing. We could go swimming. We could go to, beach. Let's go down to location. And just expand on those. Those will give you lots of different ideas. You'll start seeing themes pop up over and over again. Sometimes that's because your mind is trying to take you somewhere. If family drives into a whole, if you start seeing in the family section some terms that you're also seeing in the location section, that you also see in the activity section, you start seeing connections that go together. Sometimes that may be your mind taking you there, but also consider the novel ideas, some of the weird ones. Let's go to France. I mean, that's a vacation, that's a location, right? Or Australia. Okay, What would we do in Australia, New Zealand? Hobbit holes. All right, let's make a hobbit build. Wait, I was just talking about holidays. How did I get the hobbit holes? So this is also a very useful tool for you to use, and it's very visual. If you're a visual person, it's very comforting. It's a great tool for you to use when you're doing research for something. If you're researching a build, it's like, I need to know everything there is about the Cinderella Castle at Walt Disney World because I want to make that build. And I don't want to use Lego's build. I mean, it's nice, but I want to make my own take on it. So going down the rabbit holes of there, mind mapping gives you a chance to map out those different things that you find when you're going through Google images and searches and so forth. But if you start with that central idea, as you're mapping out the different parts of it, what does it look like? What does it look like at night? What does it look like in the day? What does it look like on Christmas? What does it look like at Halloween? What does it look like with different lighting on it? Okay, that's the look. What's inside of it? Have we ever, how many people get to go inside of it? Is there fun things to do inside of it? Are there things to do outside of it? Or is there extra landscaping that I want to deal with? What is the outside of it? Do I only maybe want to do the grounds? Maybe I want to do the whole Magic Kingdom. Oh my gosh, this build is getting bigger and bigger by the moment. But mind mapping gives you a way to record some of those thoughts that your mind jumps around to and gives you a place to come back to. If it's like, okay, wait, I'm over here. I wasn't going to make the whole of Walt Disney World. That's crazy. I don't have time for that. Let's go back to what's inside. Maybe I just make the dining room and do that. Because, Lego's done Cinderella Castle a number of times. And they're cool. Tool number 4, probably the one I use, I won't say the most because I use these all a lot. This is one that's near and dear to me because it's so simple to remember. It's called Scamper. And it's something that we see in the Lego community a lot. We see substitutions where you take something and you don't have the right thing for it, so you use something else, and that's creative and that's great. And you can build on that. Defer judgment, explore novelty, build on other ideas. Sometimes those other ideas are your own ideas, so remember that. S, substitution. C, combine, put things together. We know how to do that, right? A, adapt. What else can I use this? I can't use this here, I can use this another way. M is modify, minimize, maximize. P is put to other use, and we've seen this in Kelly's build over there. The Spinjitzu lampshades are just adorable. Great parts usage. We always call it NPU, right? Nice parts usage, put to other use. It's already been a thing in divergent thinking for a while. E, eliminate, minimize. Especially in microscale, you have to eliminate things. You can't get every detail in there, so you have to focus in on what's the right detail. But E, eliminate. And R is rearrange. Sometimes reverse, do things in a different order. Sometimes it just has to be the exact opposite order. What happens in our train build if our cabooses go first? I don't know. Something to explore. What if the caboose and the engine are on the inside and the passenger cars are on the outside? Well, that's kind of wacky, but okay, what if we take that into space? Let's step into that airline pilot who wants to be a NASA engineer now, apparently. What happens there if the drive and the endpoint are, and then we radiate out and, all right, now I've got a whole ISS build in mind that I want to do. But now I have too many ideas. I'm just getting ideas standing up here on stage. I have too many ideas, so what do I need to do? I need to converge down. How do I focus down on what I want to get done? Use logic, organization, and structure. A lot of these come down to matrices, 4x4 grids. I talked yesterday briefly about SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But before we get into the actual tools, there are rules to converging as well. We talked about the rules for diverging. They are defer judgment, embrace novelty. Uh-oh, I can only remember 3 of the 4. This is going to be a trick. What was that second one? I think I skipped one. But there's convergent rules too. So in convergent rules, our keynote speaker hit it right on the nail head. First and foremost, be affirmative, be positive about this. Be deliberate about your converging. When you're converging on ideas, make sure that you're focusing on what you need to get done, what your goal is. So know what your objectives are. Improve those ideas if necessary. Sometimes you went all of these directions, and one of those is close, but can be tweaked a little bit and improved. And keep considering novelty. That one's in both converging and diverging, and that's an important one because it's very easy for us to take the first right answer. We're so trained to take the fast and easy way to get to that first right answer that sometimes we miss the best right answer because we didn't explore the novelty. So I'm going to give you 3 tools for convergent thinking. Talked about matrices. This matrix is online in a number of places and has about 7 different names. But it's at its essence, how easy is it to do something and how much benefit do I get out of it? So easy across the right left axis, up down axis, what benefit do I get out of it? Benefit is obviously going to be subjective to you, especially for Lego building. What benefit does Lego building have? Well, are you original? Is it going to win an award? Will it get me noticed? Are you going to get on the Brothers Brick? That's flashy. Or does it fulfill personal goals? Do you just need to get it out of your system? Do you want to, improve your technique? What benefit does it have to you? So this works for having any number of ideas. So, and you can have ideas all over the place in terms of focus, and this can help you rein in what's the best opportunity to take. It's one of the other names for it is the wow, how now, and nope. Column number 4 is nope. So in this matrices, I was looking at a number of different things that I could possibly use for my time in coming up to things. And what do I have on here? We've got some different things. I don't know how easy this is for you to read. Digital mosaics. Yep, those are kind of cool. Pretty easy, kind of cool. We have a TV set mock. Brandon Jones, he's done it. It's not necessarily easy, but kind of cool. Then we have over here, Copy Manny. Manny has this wonderful build of where he's got this train that goes around from 2x2 Technic, or 1x2 Technic links. It just goes around and around. I thought that was so cool. It's like, I could do that. That would be great. But the benefit out of it is kind of low. And the difficulty of it seems a little high. So it's kind of in my nope column at the moment. And then the quilt squares I've got over here in the other side of the matrix, where it's a little easier to do, pretty beneficial. So if it's easy to do, but not that beneficial, you could do it now. If it's easy to do and greatly beneficial, that's a wow time. That's when you want to go with it. And if it's hard to do, but greatly beneficial, you want to think how. How might I get that done? How might I find an easier way to do it? How might I encourage other people to help me with it? How might I learn to do it more effectively? So if it's easy and worthwhile, go for it. So those are the things that I tend to focus in on. That helps you select down to a smaller group of activities if you have a ton of different ideas to deal with. The second tool is another matrix, but this one lists out things specifically. This is used for finding multiple options when you only have a dozen, maybe a couple dozen different ideas to sort through. This one helps you determine what's important to you and focus in on those. So in this case, I was figuring out what set I wanted to buy next. What do we got here? Typewriter, world map, Monkey Kid, Monkey King Mech, Ice Castle, the Treehouse, Coliseum, police station, the roller coaster, the piano, Sesame Street, the bookshop, and the London bus. These were all high on my list earlier in this year before the glut of things came out in September and October. And then what you do is you say, okay, well, what criteria am I going to use to judge these things? Well, our usual initial criteria is cost, because we're a very money-centric society. But in addition to that, I wanted to talk about the love of the theme. How much do I love this theme? What else do we need to know? Price per cost. I tend to mock things out. I'll build something. Sometimes I won't even build it before I part it out. So the price per cost. So we've got the cost initially and the price per piece as one of our criteria. How many cool parts do they have? Definitely want to know that. And do I have any techniques I can learn from it? So these are 5 criteria that are important to me. Your criteria may be different. Do not necessarily copy these criteria. I think they're great because they work for me. But then the key to this is not to go across and say, okay, let me rank the typewriter on each of these things, because you'll get into a mindset where it's like, I've already predetermined, I want that typewriter. It's got cool parts. It's got cool parts. And I'll be thinking about the cool parts the whole time I'm going through cost and price per piece and everything else, and love of set and love of theme. So instead you go down from the criteria that you've set, so that you try to judge everything deliberately with your objectives, being positive on that attribute matrix. Name's in the title. So we're judging the love of theme, and that's obviously personal to me. Your love of theme is going to be very different than this order, based on these things. Typewriter, kind of cool. World map, I love maps. Maps are my jam. My living room is covered in maps. Monkey King, Monkey Back, the theme doesn't do so much for me, but it's, it's interesting and I like it. Ice Castle, I'm not Alyssa. Sorry, Alyssa. It's only a B for me. Treehouse, Coliseum, both personal, dear to me. I've actually been to the Coliseum in Rome, so that one's kind of got a special place in my heart. Police station, roller coaster, piano, okay. Sesame Street, I grew up on Sesame Street. I can deal with that, and so on. And then you go ahead and you rank the other things going down those columns as well. I'm not going to bore you with all my mental moments of why I did these things. Cost is pretty obvious. It's very linear. There's not a whole lot of subjectivity to it. It's much more objective. Cost per piece, you could get that out, down to the decimal place if you needed to. Cool parts, techniques, and so on. You don't have to use an ABC system for this. You can use a numerical system for this, but whatever system you use, you need to use in every single column. I mentally shift the ABC system into a system that I can average off of. Not everybody can. It may just be easier for you to rank it 1 to 5. Just make sure you always know which one is top and which one is bottom, so you're not getting them mixed up as you go down the columns. So coming up with these, the average that worked for me is that I had to now decide between the typewriter, the Monkey King Mech, and the Treehouse. They all kind of averaged out at about a B+. If you're a grade school teacher, the ABC problem is probably very easy for you to use. And I eventually, kind of figured out which of these attributes means the most to me. Is it love of the theme? Because in that case, I'm getting the Treehouse. Is it the cool parts? Well, in that case, it's not necessarily the Treehouse. Is it the cost? In that case, it's definitely the Monkey King Mech. Well, I ended up getting the treehouse. So for me, obviously, the theme was the best. You're on the edge of your seats. That's awesome. What did she buy? What did she buy? But this is a great technique, especially if you're on a limited budget, and I know we all are. We would love to have infinite money to give to Lego. But gosh, people, we have to make choices. We have to make choices, and this is one way to do it. The third tool is one I haven't used a lot of, but I wanted to bring up to you. It's the Cartesian questions. And this one I think is important because it sets you out of the box just a little bit. It lets you evaluate ideas with a new perspective. We obviously go, what happens if I do this? We know that those are the we deal with consequences all the time. We hope that our kids are dealing with thinking of these consequences. We try to train that into them. What happens if I do this? What happens if I make the Darth Vader TIE fighter out of gingerbread? What happens if I do this? Make those lists. What happens if I don't do it? Nobody knows. Nobody gets to see a gingerbread TIE fighter. It doesn't go into my Star Wars Winter Village. Oh wait, I'm making a Star Wars Winter Village already now. Holy cow, what? See how I diverge when I'm converging and I converge when I'm diverging? But also, what doesn't happen if I do this? What do I neglect if I spend my time making a Star Wars TIE fighter out of gingerbread? What doesn't happen? What doesn't get done? What don't I have the resources for, whether it's my time or my parts or my energy? And what doesn't, this is the hardest one to wrap your brain around. What doesn't happen if I don't do it? So, well, obviously it doesn't get made. What doesn't happen if I don't do it? It just gives you extra weight to those missed opportunities and the things that might go by the wayside when you're focused on something else. So again, this is one I don't do enough of. It's one that's newer to me than some of the others. And it's one that I need to practice more because I think it helps you step out of that box. I'd also like to give you a couple ideas on how to improve ideas. I'm going to say ideas a lot today. Storytelling. We made that list earlier. What would X do? What would airline pilots do? What would postal service workers do? What would writers do? Writers make stories all the time. Well, writers start with a catalyst. A story, a good story, starts with a catalyst. Something has changed the status quo. You're in a world, and sometimes they have to set the stage for the world too, which is a boring chapter on, hey, this world grew up this way. But no, most writers start you in the action. Something's happened, something's changed. We'll tell you what the status quo was in a little bit, but they start right there at the action. Something compels something to change. That's a great point to use if you're making a mock. I mean, the Star Wars gingerbread is interesting. It's a mashup, but it doesn't really tell a story quite as much as it could. Does it have a well-defined character? Well, I think if you saw, a gingerbread Darth Vader in there, that's kind of an interesting character. You know who Vader is, if you know Star Wars at all. And what are their desires? So writers think about what a character desires, what their goals are, and what's stopping them from getting it. Sometimes it's themselves, sometimes it's nature, sometimes it's another person, being, entity. So sometimes it's nothing in their control. So what do writers do? They have a catalyst, they have a well-defined character. They have unexpected details and consequences. And we see that in mocks all the time, all those unexpected details, those moments, those Easter eggs, we call them a lot of times, that really make a plain model turn into something fantastic. And writers deliver emotional rewards. What do I mean by emotional rewards? You read a story, if you read nonfiction, sometimes you go through, it's like reading a textbook, sometimes it's like reading a history book. If you're reading a story or a novel or a creative work, got that word in there again, it gives you an emotional feeling. It connects to you in a way in your emotions. Sometimes it's a good emotion, sometimes it's not a good emotion. Sometimes it's like, those people are crazy and I want nothing to do with them. And I say writer, and it doesn't necessarily have to be novels. This works for television, this works for movies, this works for most creative works. Sometimes it even works for works of art, like paintings and Lego models, Lego mocks. So in order to know how to deliver emotional rewards, you need to know what emotions can be imparted as well. There are degrees. I love this visual. I'm a rainbow person, so if you see me today, you'll see me wearing a rainbow mask. I'm a rainbow person. So this color wheel broken down into emotions is very personal. But the emotional rewards through storytelling can deliver joy, they can deliver anger, they can deliver fear, they can deliver disgust. Have you thought about making a mock that delivers disgust? Well, somebody did. There's some blue intestines hanging out on somebody's plate. But emotional rewards emerge from conflict. Something's changed, it's causing conflict, tension, and the resolution of those elements. So think about what emotions you want your viewer to feel and how you might cause those emotions. So I love this chart. I've got to figure out how to make this in a 3D model for out of Lego, right? Other ways to improve ideas, and this is the one that I use probably the most, is what's called PPCO. I like acronyms, apparently, Scamper, PPCO. And this has you focus on evaluating and improving ideas, keeping the positive in mind, being affirmative, being deliberate, being constructive, following those rules. The first P is pluses. What are the pluses of this idea? List as many as you can think of. What are the great things about this idea? It may be an idea you hate, but what are the pluses of this idea? I hate taking out the garbage. Well, the pluses are the garbage is no longer in the house. What are the potentials of this idea? I don't know why I keyed on no garbage. Now I've got to follow that one through, don't I? What are the potentials? I hate taking out the garbage, but the potentials are maybe I should invent a thing that takes the garbage out for me. Maybe I need a conveyor belt system that just takes the garbage right out. Maybe I need to leave the garbage in the garage and not in the house. So think of at least 3 or more good things that can result from this idea. I mean, I asked a question. I didn't really come up with a specific idea that I was trying to improve. But now I am, apparently I need well, how might I take the garbage out better? Okay, I have to diverge. Now I'm the place. What are the concerns? All right, pluses, potentials, concerns. What are your concerns about this idea? I might get wet. It's raining. I have to go outside. What are concerns you have about the idea? Oh, wait, but you need to phrase them correctly and deliberately so that you're thinking about them as a problem to solve and not a complaint to have. How to take the garbage out so I don't get wet? How might I get the garbage to the curb without having to leave the comfort of my seat? So those are the concerns I have. How might I, how might we? And then the fourth element of this, they're in quadrants just because I had cute little blocks and I wanted to play with them. PPCO, the fourth element, is overcoming those concerns. Well, we've already phrased it as a problem to overcome. We've just listed it out as a problem. We go back to that diverging. Okay, how might I get the garbage to the curb without leaving the comfort of my seat? We talked about, let's make a conveyor belt. Let's train the dog to do it. Let's get a high school helper to do it. Child number 2. Hey, we could have another baby, get them to do it. It's a long-term process, but it'll get there. We're not judging, we're diverging, right? So embrace the novel. Those are a couple methods we have for improving ideas. There are additional resources online. Creative problem solving is an entire discipline of study. There are dozens and dozens of divergent and convergent tools. They're useful in different ways. I brought these forward to this community because they're A, useful to use alone, B, useful to use when evaluating art ideas, which is what I consider Lego mock building. But the ideas out there can be used in a number of ways. Brainstorming is one you hear a lot about. It's supposed to be used for larger, medium-sized groups. I won't say large groups, medium-sized groups. There are ones that are better for medium-sized groups. Brainstorming is great if you're an extrovert. If you're an introvert in a brainstorming session, you're the one not talking a whole lot, so you're not necessarily getting involved. Brain writing is one that's great. It's a lot like brainstorming, but nobody's written down. Brain writing is great for introverts of a medium-sized group that you need to come up with ideas. So there's lots of different divergent tools out there. There's lots of different convergent tools out there. You can do a card sort. You can do other things. You can do voting. Again, bigger groups, different context. I brought these to this group because I thought they would be helpful to the Lego community. The key to creativity is, what was the key, the secret sauce from yesterday? Attitude. Somebody was here and listening. Thank you. But training yourself and practicing, training yourself on how to use these rules, finding the tools, but make sure you have those rules in front of you too when you're practicing. Creative problem solving, International Center for Studies in Creativity, which is where I got my master's. I love them dearly. They have a distance program, Buffalo State, SUNY Network. But additionally, there are more resources available, and there is science behind this. This is not just, oh, let's be creative and artistic. There's actual studies that have gone on. There are dozens of psychological tests that are out there, and I'm running out of time, so I'm going to now ask if there are any questions. Okay, we've got one here in the audience. Okay, I think I heard, are there online tools? Apps? Oh, there are tons of apps. The mind mapping, there are dozens of actual softwares that will do that for you. You can start typing things in and it'll go kind of crazy on you. If you look up mind mapping, it's a term that's used throughout a lot of different industries, including psychological and elementary instructions actually too. So there's a lot of teachers that use mind mapping. That one's easy to find. Most of these tool names are by specific creators. Some of them have apps out there, some of them don't. A lot of it's matrices, and I tend to use Excel. I mean, that morphological, that attribute matrix that I made where everything was in the columns and rows, that was just an Excel spreadsheet. And the nice thing is, if you're using numbers, you can have it average it for you, so. Got one online?
Deanie, excuse me, Deanie, I will say from the chat, they really affirm your choice of the treehouse right there, and then we really went on to the Star Wars Winter Village, and the discussion has been pretty good about different ideas.
I sense a collab for next year.
They did suggest a Mandalorian mosaic with Christmas colored quarter rounds, or Mandalorian with a Santa hat. So. I didn't see any questions, but you generated a good discussion going on.
I inspired creativity.
There you go.
All right, I'm going to leave you with one last thought. I have set a personal mission for myself that is fivefold. One is to, oh boy, now I have to remember them, LINEA. Leave a legacy of toy and games, inspire creativity in friends and family. So thank you for helping me check off number 2. Nurture friends and family, explore and learn, and always have fun while doing it. So thank you all.